We back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be joining us from. My name is Devin Morgan, director of Youth Baseball at Driveline, founder of the Driveline Academy, moving my water out of the way, and this is the Driveline Academy podcast, world's most dangerous youth baseball podcast, which is evident by my last week of social media interactions. Joined as per usual by my brother, partner, Driveline Academy assistant director, and international man of mystery, Jeremy Tactile. Shout out to the pod listeners. The message I did not expect to get when Jeremy was on his European holiday was someone approaching you in Paris that they listened to the show?
In the Louvre. So shout out. I apologize for being... it was in the bathroom, and I was a little flustered that someone recognized me in the bathroom. So I apologize for not being more loquacious. There you go. More talkative. And not even asking your name. But shout out to you, who was also in the Louvre in the bathroom on the same day and recognized me from the podcast.
I mean, we're up over 55,000. We are getting to the point that we are 1,000 listens a week. It blows my mind that we just started talking about youth baseball, and apparently people want to listen and they're interested in what we do. So man, huge shout out to you guys. Thank you for the likes and the subscribes and the sharing and doing all the things.
Even if you're hate listening, we take hate listeners.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. If you're fueled by hatred and that's why you're boosting our numbers, thank you.
If I've blocked you on every social media platform available, but I can't block you on Spotify or Apple, and you choose to engage with us here, congrats to you. You found a loophole, and I respect it.
Especially if they're using you as their profile picture. Is that an extra? They give you an extra boost?
Yeah, bonus points for that. So if anybody wants to kind of wrap their heads around about the toll that it takes to run an organization of this scale, apparently the appropriate way to burn steam at the end of that is to go to Europe. Just get out of the country entirely.
Italy, highly recommend. Just going to Italy and relaxing. If you do this job, it's much needed, and Italy's nice.
Did you have any Jack Donaghy from 30 Rock-esque, his golfing thing? He's working on his putting so he can get into this Zen state to think about stuff. Did anything you're in the middle of Sweden and you're aha?
No, I didn't have that. I did. I sat for an hour in Cinque Terre, Italy, gorgeous place.
Oh, babe.
And was half reading a book, half watching this really disorganized game of youth soccer that was going on, and wanting baseball to be more like that.
Ooh. Yeah.
And just random kids jumping in, jumping out, kids leaving in the middle of the game, and we're still playing. It was cool to watch that, and I was I was thinking of it wistfully, man, why can't we have that with baseball? That used to be a thing. We could just round up a bunch of buddies and go to a sandlot and play, and I don't think that happens a whole lot anymore.
Yeah, well, it's the why can't this be baseball thing is very much the thing I was telling you about the other night when I went to my daughter's, who's on the cheer squad now, cheerleader / wrestler. So don't get it twisted. She will throw you into oblivion.
She will be thrown and throw you.
Yes.
Into oblivion.
Well,
yes.
both. Well, actually, she's a base and cheer, so she's throwing in both endeavors.
That's fair.
She had her first high school football game, and what I was telling the boys the other night is it's very amusing to me that we're in a generation of high school football coaches that grew up playing Madden, and you can tell the way that they manage the clock and they see opportunities 4th and 2, and you haven't stopped the run once. I'm going for it.
Yeah.
And I don't care if I'm on my own 40. I'm going for it. I'm going to go for the 2-point conversion early. And again, this is just the genesis of a thought process that starts with an analytical evaluation of what works and what doesn't. And it's hilarious to me that we're clearly in that phase of things in high school football. And if that thing is going to come to high school baseball, I'm not holding my breath, because I think that that's a 20-year story.
Yeah,
it's going to be 2055, and you're going to have some kid who grew up playing MLB The Show, and they understand that home runs are worth more. That's just the way that it is.
Hitting the ball harder is good. Yeah.
Crazy talk. So the other thing that we'll spend a couple of minutes talking about, because I think it's worth unpacking, is that we are very soon, ideally by the time that we have the next episode of this come out, we are going to have sponsorship on the pod, which means ads.
It's huge.
But I wanted to talk about why, because I think that's important. We certainly are not on a scale of like, some massive, whatever your massive podcast performer or platform du jour. We're not there.
So we're talking about why outside of our roaring popularity.
Yes, okay. Yes, of course. And the why is because of scholarship. It's just scholarship. So to put this in scale, last year we effectively gave away $70,000 worth of scholarship.
Yeah, more.
60. No, is it more than 70?
It was more than 70.
Okay. We'll just say 70 because it's a clean and palatable number. And what that means is for that many kids, some of it partial scholarships, some of it full scholarships, we gave away $70,000 worth of revenue.
About a quarter of the kids that were in our academy last year were on a scholarship of some type, whether it was full or partial.
And really it was just kind of whatever it took to get those kids here, because they're kids whose their families get it and they want to get better, and we just kind of punted on making as much or any money to help those kids, and to help them be here. We've done that for every year we've had Academy. I could probably rip like the grand total. I'm sure it's well over $100,000 at this point. It's probably over 120 if I really thought about it. And that money comes from the proverbial bottom line, right? Yeah. And I think it's important to note that like it's not like if we had charged all those families or only taken kids that could pay full freight, that like you and I would putting like another diamond in the rollie, like that's right. That's neither one of us are boat owners, like maybe
not yet,
maybe someday.
I'm thinking about an inflatable kayak. Does that count as a boat?
Well, using my grandfather's naval logic, if it's not a ship, but it's on the water, then I think it's a boat. So, yes. Yeah. I mean, yes, a kayak is a boat.
Right.
I don't know. If I could call him and ask him this question live on the podcast, I would do it right now. If you have a grandfather you can talk to, man, I would highly suggest you call him. But yeah, we've given away dollars to help kids be here, and it feels weird in youth baseball talking about profit. Like it feels a little weird. So to make that a little bit more real for people, that $70,000 is money that we couldn't spend on fields. It's money we couldn't spend on equipment. It's money that we couldn't spend on paying some of our guys that work in our program. That's literally where that money goes to. So I do think it looks like we are not going to have as significant of scholarship funds necessary for this next year.
We'll probably, when all things are said and done, it'll probably be similar, like right around the same. Probably right around.
Yeah,
I would guess the same amount asked for at least.
Yeah, and now that we have that in Washington and Arizona, I think one of the things that Jeremy and I spent a lot of time talking about was kind of like how do we try to do both? Like there's some of these things that are just necessary for our teams, and they require money. Like it's not just you get 12 kids and you're going to enter 6 tournaments and you go like total amount of money divided by these costs. There's so much that goes into this thing the way that we want to run it.
Right.
That, we want to be able to do both. There are certain things that are just kind of necessary for our program. Yep. We have to have field time. There's certain things that we want for our program. We're buying a bunch of iPads. Have we bought them yet? Is it happening like today?
It's happening today.
Okay. So I was going to say,
RIP my card.
If anybody has the plug on a bunch of cheap iPads that didn't fall off of a truck, holler at me. But it's fine. We're going to buy them legitimately. there's things that we need, there's things that we want, and then there's things like just, for the guys that, again, as we continue to build out the staff that we need to run this thing, we have to pay people because we want the guys that work for us to be enthusiastic about their jobs. And if you're going to be enthusiastic about your job at living on ramen, it's tough to resolve that. So,
and a part of it, which I think like we take for granted that people kind of get, and I don't think a lot of people get. And I think, when Stryker was getting going in Arizona, one of the things he did was to delineate where your dues go.
Yep.
Obviously people know, we got to pay coaches, we got to pay for tournament fees, league fees, any of that kind of stuff. We got to pay for field time. People don't account for tech subscriptions.
Sure.
And like that we don't, people may think we're Driveline, we get those for free. We do not get those for free, right? Like we have to pay for all the tech that we use. We have to pay to keep the lights on in the building. And there's a lot of ancillary costs that go in there that are not nothing that like I think a lot of people probably take for granted when they look at the price of our program, which is relative to a lot of other programs around here. We made sure it was like similarly priced.
Yeah.
But the way we run it is way more expensive to run than just a program who has field time coaches and plays in tournaments and games.
Yeah.
There's a lot of extra costs that go into what we do that don't always get accounted for.
Yeah. And again, some of that, if we were doing the conventional thing, I would you pay a coach some sort of stipend, you book the tournaments you plan to be in, you hop on fields you don't pay for, and you could make money in this industry doing it that way.
People make money in this industry not even doing it that way.
Sure. Right.
Let's not get it twisted. There's nobody out there running a baseball organization not making money.
Probably not. Yeah.
Like I don't think there's somebody out there doing it out of the goodness of his heart and not taking anything from the bottom line in terms of like even paying yourself a salary to do this.
Yep.
And like it's a lot cheaper to run it if you're just paying coaches, paying like the director's salary and paying for field.
Yep.
And then a lot of places do like you pay your tournament fees on your own.
Oh,
so
sure.
Like the only thing you get team dues wise are
you get a guy.
Coach.
You get a guy.
Right.
Yeah.
And like there's nobody out there running a baseball program that isn't making some sort of money. Otherwise he wouldn't be able to do that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And the way that we want to run it inherently means we just make less money.
It means we're charging the same.
Yeah.
But we're going to make less money. And like the academy is making less profit than these other programs because we do put a lot of that what would be profit directly back into tech.
Correct.
And R&D.
Yeah.
And like researching things and
or some of our people,
Right.
Yeah, and it's funny. I watch a show on YouTube, this Mise en Place all the time. It's on the Eater channel, and they go to all like these Michelin 1, 2, 3-star restaurants, and they kind of like walk people through their day. I'm addicted to this series because
So it started with the bear.
It started with the bear. It started with me getting way more into cooking in COVID, and then it's now transitioned into like I generally watch one of those videos a day. Because the idea, that some of these chefs are they're so process and detail oriented, and it's this it's service, and I think there's a lot of parallels there between what we do and what they do in a restaurant. Anyways, point being, I'm watching this one this morning, and this guy is running like a Mexican seafood restaurant in Texas. And Texas, not necessarily like the hub of a lot of like seafood that's just like
it's the first thing
right?
I thought of, yep.
So everything they have to get flown in from kind of like purveyors that can get it to you like day of and get it on a plane day of. And he was saying that they spend somewhere around $15,000 to $18,000 on seafood a week. Don't have to run it that way.
No.
But it's an active choice relative to the quality of the experience for your service that you want to conduct, right? So anyways, to that end, we should have a discount code for you guys dropping ideally by the time we film this next episode, and I'll be 1,000% transparent about how this works. You guys are going to get a discount. off of what that thing you would pay for at retail, and we get a little bit of kickback on the back end, and that goes directly into our scholarship pod.
Yep.
Like that's exactly what that stuff is working for. I've got one that's locked up. I've got a couple that I think we should be able to have rolling relatively soon. And on the off chance any of our listeners work for some company that wants to do sponsorship of an audience of people, 10% women in the last 30 days, as a matter of fact, shout out to you guys. But man, our podcast analytics are so hilarious. For anybody that wants to reach out about those type of opportunities, Devin@drivelinebaseball.com. That's my email address. I'm not giving you my phone number, but holler at me and we can talk. But yeah, man, like $1,000 a week. It's so funny though that like the demo on our age demographics, heaviest is 35 to 44. So like both of our wheelhouses.
Nah.
You're not 35 yet.
No.
Oh man.
Okay. I got years to go before I get there.
I forget how close to death I am. Our second highest demo, 45 to 59.
Okay.
Third highest, 28 to 34.
There's my demographic.
The smallest demo, 60 plus. Which is an easy transition into social media beef. That's the stuff that's popped off over the last week or so.
You want to go red? Are we angry?
I think we're going to keep it blue.
Good.
I think we're going to keep the vibes blue.
Because we're sad at how small some people are.
Nah, man, I'm just cool. Like, I'm cool with all that. I'm so cool with it. So, Jeremy and I, early front part of this year, I think like January, February-ish, recorded a podcast.
No, it was probably earlier than that.
Was it November, December?
It was probably sometime in December.
Okay.
Maybe early January, but it was probably because it stemmed from pull downs, which we did in November
and December. Yeah.
So
Jeremy and I recorded a podcast that has not come out, and I don't think it's going to come out. And we blew off some steam. And again, given that you're joining us on this podcast platform and we have the ability to tell these long form stories, I will tell the long form version of this. There's a guy who we didn't name in that episode. And I don't think I want to name him.
Though?
I mean, we were in the vicinity. We didn't directly name him.
We did
episode.
not say his exact name, but we were real close. There was no mixing up who we were talking about.
Yeah, and I don't think we need to do it today either. But there's a guy who his persona online is kind of rooted in negativity. He played in the show for a bit, and a lot of what he puts out is just venting about the state of the game at various levels, right?
He's a hater.
It's very much, like OG Chappelle Show fans know this, like the haters ball, the haters ball. He is that guy. He has kind of taken on that persona with an unrelenting amount of consistency. And the tough part is he does he will shout out some kids for some positive stuff every once in a while. But largely what he either represents or regurgitates is negative takes. And he found some of our content that we had started posting on the Academy social about our kids going through training. And he draws a very direct line between anything weighted ball equal injury, throwing hard equal injury. So Driveline, and specifically us, and specifically me, he draws just like the most direct path between those two things.
I think you're giving him too much credit.
I probably am.
I think the path he draws, because I honestly think he has no idea what we do.
Oh, that's very clear.
And like the line he is drawing is Driveline is bad.
Yes.
Because Driveline is something he hears that has changed the game that he once played in. And I don't think he's going as far as like weighted balls or weighted implement training. I think it's just like whatever you guys do is bad.
Yeah, all of it's bad.
Yeah.
All of it's bad. And he's from a generation of people, because he's older than me. Who,
probably in your demo, though.
He's probably in my demo. That's so tough, dude. It's so tough. So tough that he's in my demo. he's into a generation of people who I think came up in the conventional setting. You know, like you're just going to put your head down and you're going to work hard, and we're going to remain intentionally oblivious to the outputs that are valuable. But of those kids that put their heads down and work hard, some of them make it. Therefore, this approach of just putting your head down and working hard is going to get everyone there, despite the fact that it generally didn't work.
Generally is a nice term there. It does not work.
And the crazy thing is, and I think we talked about this on the episode that we didn't release, is that like he's not a Frank Thomas, he's not a Rafael Palmeiro, right. He's not a Mark McGuire, he's not a
he's a guy that made it in spite of all of that.
He's not a Carlton Fisk, you know.
If he had access to the stuff that we do, he might have been a really good baseball player.
Yep.
As it was, he played in the show, was fine.
Yep.
But like
played for a decently long amount of time.
Yeah. But like putting my psychologist hat on, like I think he knows that like he was special because he was one of the ones who did do it that way and make it, and democratizing the ability of people of a certain height and stature, using technology and data. Is something that scares him because he realizes that it makes him slightly less special.
Could be.
And his story is slightly less special.
Yeah, could be. So this
or
person,
he's just a really small human being like that. It could be that too.
Yeah. So anyways, the episode, to quickly recap the episode that we won't put out, he found some of our training videos, and it's pertinent to kind of get into this stuff. I've largely blocked him on every platform that I have, my personal stuff, our socials.
I haven't.
Because, because I don't, you put yourself in that position of being so exceptionally negative all the time, then it's just like, man, there's no conversation to be had here. I'm not interested.
Well, and the amount he goes after you, if you hadn't blocked him, that would be all you see on your social feeds.
Well, right. So again, thank God for podcast platforms, because this is it takes some unpacking here. So the way that this works is we got to talk about copyright law. I take a picture of my child and I put it on the internet. By doing so, I am establishing my copyright. It's my image. I created it. I control it. You can get into the weeds about, does the social media platform du jour also own some type of copyright because I posted on their platform? That's a different issue. Never went to law school. Don't really think that that's applicable to discussion. Anyways, point being that when I post, I establish copyright. When I do that with my children, when I posted footage of Cora in her highlights of wrestling last year, I didn't go to my daughter, or I didn't go to the parent of my daughter and say, hey, you have to fill out this consent form to get authorization to do that because I am her parent.
Right.
However, if I posted footage of another child following the letter of the law, which is the COPA law, the Child Online Policy Protection Act, it's COPPA.
Privacy.
I'm sorry, Privacy Protection Act. Following the letter of the law, that's what I should do. So what we do with our kids is part of the waivers that parents sign when they participate. So you have a participation waiver and a media waiver that all of our kids sign. So follow me. We post content of our kids.
With consent.
With consent. If you're blocked from being able to see our content through your profile, you don't have the mechanism that the social media platforms have created to allow you to repost something without violating like copyright attribution, which is repost.
Right.
That is a thing, right? Yeah. On Twitter or X, I suppose nowadays, and I don't even know is it retweeting anymore now?
No, it's re-Xing. No, I think it's just like reposting. Yeah.
The point being that if you are not blocked, then you can repost someone's stuff.
Right.
And you maintain there's no changing of copyright attribution.
And that is part of the reason that people get blocked, is so they can't quote tweet or share
Correct.
things that you post.
Correct. I mean, I think one of the first persons that I ever like blocked on socials was another guy who's just got like a notoriously toxic persona. And I was just, this is way back in the day. This is like in 18. I just posted some footage of D. I posted some footage of Danny training at the old Driveline. And and Danny was like 9 at the time or 8. And he retweeted it and is like, this is why Driveline's wrong about everything. And look at this and look at this, look at this. He's 9.
Yeah.
Like he's 9. So you're exactly correct. Part of the reason that you block someone is you also deny them the ability to basically participate in your social media that way. So this person in particular, because he's blocked, if he wants to publicly shame us or shame me, he has to create a burner account that isn't blocked, download my footage or the Academy's footage or whatever, and then repost it from his account. But again, rewind 90 seconds ago. When you post something originally, you're trying to establish copyright. Right? Like there was this whole thing going around, last summer, I think, where when on Twitter they had like fired a bunch of their legal staff and people were posting like full like Hollywood movies, right?
Yeah.
When you do that, I'm essentially like establishing my copyright control over a Warner Brothers property. Warner Brothers isn't going to like play nice with that, right?
No, not at all.
And that's effectively like this thing that this person is done repeatedly. So he kept doing it to the point that he got his account permabanned. Created a new account, which technically by letter of the law, in terms of X Twitter rules, you're not supposed to. That's ban avoidance. We haven't really gone down that path. But anyways, created a new account and wasn't really talking about us. Because I'm naive enough to think that he had learned a lesson.
Nah.
See, being like the glass half full guy all the time also exposes me for looking like a dummy when I expect people to learn things like this. Yeah. So time goes on, et cetera, et cetera. We never released that podcast episode because I just felt like I didn't want to go there.
Both of us had cold feet after
it
felt great. Yeah, it felt great in the moment. This is one of those things that like it's, when people say like, hey, if you really are upset, like write in a letter, write it in an email, and then just don't send it. Yeah. And then either never send it or like if you're still that angry a couple days later, then you can send it.
Yeah.
It felt great.
Yep.
And then the next day I messaged you and was like, I don't think we should post that. Like, I think we need, and you're like, well, actually, not only do I agree, but like Michelle was listening from the other room and heard some of the stuff and was like, yeah, I don't think you should post that. And
yeah.
Like, that's.
Yeah. So, I mean, this just gets into like, I don't know. This gets into like the fine points of like, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to be known for? Yeah. Like, what type of person do you want to represent publicly? And the truth of the matter is that the way that social media generally functions to me is just like an extension of how media has always functioned. If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that's negative, the stuff that's alarming, the stuff that is going to cause someone to raise a proverbial eyebrow is the stuff that gets our attention. Yeah. So when you're that type of person on social media and you consistently reiterate this negative message and it just becomes, largely this echo chamber of people that also want to kind of revel in that negativity, when shots start going like over the tower wall towards us and in so much as me and in so much as Academy, most of the time I just don't feel compelled in any way, shape, or form to respond, except when you start pointing those cannon shots
and
at
that
our kids.
Comes with a huge asterisk. Like, pointed at our kids and we have problems.
And like in those problems are various, right? There's a problem number one in terms of just like copyright law. And like Look, man, when I first started having Danny train on at Driveline, I remember there was like some Korean website and social media that was like reposting some of his training footage. Did they violate copyright law? Yes. Did they violate American rules about the Child Online Privacy Protection Act? Yes. Did I care? No, because it was positive.
Right.
Right? It was positive. What this person did was the opposite. Not only are you violating copyright, not only are you violating COPA, but like you're publicly framing kids who we know, who we love, who we're invested in what they are doing. You're framing it in a negative light, having no idea of what we actually do.
And opening them up to get harassed by your cronies.
Correct. And at that point, like, look, man, yeah, I'm going to zap, like, if there are if there are consequences for your actions, hey man, I don't. That's just the way that the world works sometimes.
Correct.
But I largely, and I still haven't done anything to kind of directly go like, hey, I don't want to get in the muck.
Yeah.
I don't want to get drawn down to that level of discourse, because I think, in so much as it matters, for as long as I have tried to speak publicly about thinking that I have any idea what I'm doing as a baseball coach or as a baseball dad, I've tried to be positive. Like I think that there's value in that.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I do that because I remember when I was a younger coach and like I had questions or there were things I didn't understand about my kids and their baseball performance, and it's hard to explain how that can make you feel inadequate as a parent if you can't answer a question for your child. Like it really, really is. And it doesn't surprise me that feeling of potential inadequacy can turn into anger. Right? And that, to me, again, armchair psychologist, pulls directly into this thing about trying to be very binary about like problems and fixes. Right? If my kid has this problem in their swing or their baseball performance, then I apply this fix, and that's going to solve it. And it's not that simple. Like, it just doesn't work that way. It would be really affirming, and it would be nice and easy if I could just like solve those problems. It doesn't work that way. Like there's a guy that works for us at Driveline who, the last time I looked, had like he's like top 5 in all of our HP in our high performance assessments. Like, athleticism out of the charts. He's not playing college ball right now. He's not playing pro ball right now. We solved part of it,
yeah.
Right? Like, we solved part of it. But like the larger thing, getting the most that you want out of this game, getting the most out of whatever opportunities you are afforded, it's hard. It's really, really fucking hard.
Yeah.
And it's not that binary to just go problem, solution. But so I understand why people get negative about stuff. I understand why people want to demonize certain like types of training, but the reality is that it's just not that simple. And in so much as I have the ability to influence anything, I have tried to pick the other side of the coin. I have tried to be positive throughout this whole thing, and it's like the reason that the pinned tweet on my profile on Twitter is
X.
On X. I'm never. The reason that the pinned tweet is just like me and D in the backyard, and I'm doing side soft, and there was this whole conversation that summer about what transfers. Well, does side soft toss transfer? Does T work transfer? Does short box transfer? And what I said was side soft may not transfer. Spending time with my kid doing the thing that he loves and the thing that I feel so privileged that he and I love the same thing. I don't give a shit. That transfers. Yeah. That transfers because that is the intersection between my parental life and my personal life and my baseball life. And I've tried to just like maintain that attachment to the positive path. Yeah. It's hard though, because you're also butting up against my personal stuff, which is just like, man, I can't just let you talk about me. I can't let you do it in perpetuity without something else coming out. And the problem is because now like it's social media, right? And now this person is controlling the narrative about what we do. So a couple weekends ago, I'm sitting on the couch getting ready to watch an F1 race, and I see my phone start blowing up, and you texted me, and Reynolds texted me, and I got Jason Hirsch out at Fast. Shout out to Jason. He texted me. Some friends that I know that like aren't on X or Twitter, and they see it on Facebook, and it's like, hey, what's going on, dude? Why is that guy using your face? And the funny thing is that like he's using my face and commenting on other people's stuff, and he thought because he saw my picture and didn't see like the account that it came from, and saw somebody like he said something shitty. He was like, why is Devin blowing me up about that? Because it's my face.
Right.
At a certain point, I can't just take the path of peace.
Well, hear me out. Change your picture to his face and start saying nice things to people and see what happens. Try to ruin his negative persona.
That would be really good.
Balance out the universe a little bit.
That would be really funny. That would be really funny. And I'm just like,
just change your picture to his face, and then start like commenting on people and like, hey, that's a really good way to train. Like I see what you're doing. I see you working out there. Like
just abject, unrelenting positivity about everything.
Yeah.
Hey, kid,
see who breaks first.
Yeah, you've got all like these bungee cords and balls attached to your body, and you're taking a swing off of a tee, and that might all be eyewash, but like it looks great.
It looks great.
Good job.
See who breaks first. You having him being negative using your picture, or him having you be positive using his.
That would be so funny. And so all this like breaks on a Sunday while I'm like getting ready to watch a race and planning on not being on doing anything other than being on my couch for the next couple hours. And the funny thing is that like it's about it started off about a reverse throw. And I was texting with somebody, and I was just like, the funny thing is that like of all the things that you could demonize about what we do, is there anything more innocuous than a reverse throw?
No.
Like reverse throws, man. And so I think on Monday when I drove down here, I just I ripped a quick like 2-minute video in the car, and it's like, this is what we do the reverse throw for, and this is why I don't think you should actually be doing that in August, because it's August. Don't like take your time off from throwing. Shout out to my brother Hoots down in Australia, who was like, yeah, except I got to get ready for games in 2 weeks because you guys are on the Bizarro schedule. So,
when do they not have a game in 2 weeks?
Being on the other side of the world brings with it some different schedule concerns, but it was just like, okay, I'm not going to engage in the muck. I'm not going to get drawn down into this, but like I will take the thing that you're throwing at me and turn it on its head. I'm more than happy to do that. Because, hey man, like I said in the video, there's two phases of the throw. You're going to accelerate and you're going to decelerate. Deceleration largely happens back here. It's the stuff that like slows the arm down. And as far as we understand, if your acceleration capacity is less than your capacity to decelerate, could be in a tricky spot.
Yeah.
Don't want to do that. So we should probably think about addressing that stuff specifically. And of course, because all this stuff blew up, I take a couple minutes to like creep this guy's comments. And of course there are people like, well, yeah, just have these kids do a rear delt raise. They're 10.
No. Is he wrong though,
It's like, I mean, and you're also kind of wrong.
Yeah.
Because, like, we're not training it ballistically, right? In the moment that I put a dumbbell in my hand, I am, like, getting in this position. I'm constricting the amount of return blood flow that goes to the muscles I'm trying to activate, and I want to train the thing ballistically. I want to train it dynamically. That's why we do reverse throws. I've never seen anybody get injured doing a reverse throw. And I'm aware that facts don't matter. I'm aware. I'm totally aware. But it's just like, oh, my God. This whole discussion gets so stupid only because one side of the equation.
It's a bad faith argument. Bad faith arguments are never going to be smart discussions.
Correct. And it's like, this whole time, I've got like the old Saw / Jay-Z quote, don't argue with fools because people from a distance can't tell who is who. And it's like, man, but by the same token, I can't I can't let you control this narrative. I can't let you just kind of push this narrative that like we somehow, our genius decision about youth baseball is we are going to intentionally injure kids and then profit.
Yeah.
Great business idea.
Well, I don't know. Is there truth to you also hurting Ohtani? Is that
sure?
That's your fault as well, right?
Apparently, guys, okay. I hate to this breaking news. If you've made it this long in this podcast, it is my fault that Shohei. It's basically my fault that anybody gets hurt,
right?
But specifically Shohei Ohtani,
yeah.
Because he and I might have walked through the same door, and it's like, it's just such a dumb and disingenuous conversation. It really, truly is, and it's hard for me to imagine that someone is so stupid. And that's what it is direct stupidity to logically conduct this thought that like you train a guy in the off season. You are subject to whatever that team does over the course of 162 games. And if anything bad happens, well, the stuff that you did 9 months ago with that guy, that's to blame. It has nothing to do with workload. It certainly can't have anything to do with workload. It certainly can't have anything to do with you missing signs over the course of like a 6-week period that something was wrong.
Yeah.
I shouldn't even say that. Because I don't have any idea.
Sometimes shit happens.
And like, you know, you want to run with the big dogs and you want to be a guy at the top end of the food chain. You have to throw hard.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but like, that's just the way that it works. And it, you know, and man, shout out to OC, dude. Shout out to Driveline OG, Michael O'Connell, because he found the most hilarious thing that I think I have ever seen online. This guy submitted
that study.
It's an editorial commentary published by like a study review board. And I didn't even know that was a thing you guys did.
I want to throw a thanks OC in there, but my favorite part was him referring to it as abstinence-only training. to not like not throwing hard, not intentionally throwing hard is the same thing as abstinence-only training, which is such a good comparison.
And like in the thing I said to OC is just like this is just like cognitive dissonance 101.
Yeah.
I'll read from this asinine editorial commentary. We all know that we are in the middle of an epidemic with our youth throwers. Too many young athletes have elbow injuries, and it is unnerving at how young surgical indications can present. I agree.
Yeah.
The sports development machine is partially to blame. Okay, expand on that. It can chew athletes up in its process. Increased competition has led to increased demands before athletes have reached their full adult size. Yeah, I
don't think that's the youth development system, but that is the youth sports system that we have. Correct. He's not wrong.
Okay. Adolescents who are half the size of professional pitchers are trying to throw as fast as they see their idols throwing. I mean, we're talking about the difference between intent and like actual output. So I'll grant you a little bit of like theoretically understand what you're writing. And weighted baseball training, no need to go down that rabbit hole.
Right.
Next sentence. In order to win the battle of minds of our young throwers, we need ammunition, aka evidence. Hey, dumb shit.
You can find that evidence at the end of the rabbit hole. Yeah.
The evidence is there, man.
Yeah.
It's the Americans. Is it the American Society or American Sports Medicine Institute? It's American Sports Medicine Institute. Dr. Glenn Fleissig, Dr. James Andrews. Names that you see thrown about all the time when these discussions pop up. Look at their paper, our marker-based motion capture research on weighted ball training. What does it show? Ball weight goes up, movement speed goes down, stress on the arm goes down.
Now, I think we're not... we're discounting how good of an excuse that is, right? Like, you lose an argument. Like, yeah, well, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole.
Sure.
Like, sure, you might be right, but I'm not going down that rabbit hole. Like, I'm just going to use that whenever I feel like I'm about to lose an argument. It's like, well, you might be right, but, like, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. And then what else can they say?
Well, then what you say is blah, 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 blah.
That's the, do you watch I Think You Should Leave? I
haven't yet.
Okay.
I haven't yet.
For all my I Think You Should Leave fans, there's one sketch in season 3 that he has a debate show, and if he loses the debate, he just goes on his phone. So it's like in the middle of the show, like he realizes himself losing the debate and just like sinks into the chair. Is like, hold on, I just gotta do something real quick.
Checking
And they're
Reddit.
like trying to argue. He's like, I just gotta send this email real quick.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. And like, look, man.
Like I know I'm wrong, but like I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole to like prove that I'm wrong. Why would I do that? I could just be ignorant and right.
And again, like this is just it's hard to feel like these are not that all these conversations are not just like completely disingenuous, because there is evidence out there and you're willfully and intentionally ignorant of it.
Well, see,
because it doesn't suit you.
But that's like, it's one of two things. It's either disingenuous, and you know you're wrong.
Yes.
And you're being disingenuous about it, or you are just really ignorant.
Yeah.
And like neither are great spots to be in. But like there's not a third bucket there of like, well, this guy's like really trying to understand and just like missing kind of the larger points. Like, no, that bucket doesn't exist. This is either people who know they're wrong and want to make the argument anyways, or people who like don't want to see any of the information that could prove that they are wrong and they just want to be ignorant.
Yeah, I've had a discussion with one of those dudes who was trying to tell me that like underload throwing, totally fine. Overload throwing is the problem. And I said, hey, so you know that study that you're referencing, if you look and you see that the stress goes up as ball weight goes down because movement speed goes up. Well, no, that's not what it says. All right, man. Now we're talking about, comprehension of the English language, and at that point, I'm just tapping out and I'm moving on. I'm hitting the block button because there's nothing to be done here.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you disagree with the weighted ball reverse throw, your purview, knock yourself out. You want to talk about me in your disagreement about youth training modality, knock yourself out. If you start putting kids that are in our program and using them to amplify that message.
For sure, because we're very defensive about our kids. Also, any kids. Yeah, if you take kids that aren't ours and try to use them in your argument and throw them online, like I'm also not going to love that.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm just not going to let that pass.
No.
This is very much, just we are in the realm of things that are just not going to be permissible.
Yes.
And if you want to engage on the terms of like making me the target, making Driveline the target, well, I guess do your best. If you're going to involve our kids in that, then you're going to get hit with the manhammer.
Yeah.
Because
at minimum.
At minimum, because the thing I am not going to tolerate is one of my kids seeing themselves torn apart on social media because you violated copyright, you violated COPA to get around the fact that you've been blocked on every single platform we have.
Right.
It's just ain't gonna fly, man. It's a no-fly zone for that.
And that sums up the red light episode we did.
Yeah.
With one exception there. Come on out to Kent, Washington. We will host you. Be curious, not judgmental. If you want to be a curious person and come and actually find out what we do and how we do it, come on out here. We will probably not fight you if we see you in person. I think we could probably restrain ourselves. But yeah, come out. It's easy to throw stones. It's much harder to actually come out here and see for yourself.
And, the thing I said when this all jumped off is like, when you have guys that played in the show, they have some amount of platform, because there's guys like me who grew up watching some of those guys play. I didn't literally watch, he was a guy, and he was not a guy that I was even tangentially aware of, but he played in the show, and like, I'm never going to be able to check that box. And the day that this all popped off, that morning, I went down to my local Little League because I got the email the night before, a couple days before, that said that they needed help taking down fences. So the two fields that we use the most in our Little League, one of them has a permanent fence, one of them has a temporary. So every fall, we have to put the fence away, and every spring, we have to put it back up. And the fence is these, I don't know, here to like 3/4 of the way down the table, steel frame, wooden middle. They're not insubstantial.
Right.
They're heavy. And I show up at the field, and it was me, 2 adults, and an 11-year-old that took the whole thing down. And it took us 2.5 hours of like hard work. You know, it's not. And my kids haven't even been in the league for 2 years. But I showed up because I knew that much like for the last 6 or 7 years that we've been doing this, or for however many, it's more than that, they always need help. And I just showed up because I assumed I would be down there and I would just like shoot the shit with some of the guys that I know. And it turns out that it was just like, we wore it, you know, like we wore it. And it's again, I care about the state of youth baseball, and the truth of the matter is, like, I actually care about it way more than I care about pro ball, like by a wide margin. Yeah. You know, like
you should
evidence my fantasy football or my fantasy baseball team. It was 8-10 this year. Is like not good, not good at all. Like auto drafted, like didn't have the time to draft. I mean, it's just this is the thing that I care about. Yeah. You know, and it's perplexing, I guess. That some people want to kind of point this narrative that like what we do here is some sort of like intentional ignorance of bad training outcomes. But like you, Driveline Academy podcast listener, I would hope are smart enough to understand that like that's not a good business plan. Nobody's doing that.
No, it's not a great business plan.
Yeah, I mean, I could think about programs that I'm aware of who I definitely would never want to run our program in line with some of their values and ideals, or just the way that it kind of gets executed on a field. But I think those guys are probably trying to do the thing they think is right, largely.
Yeah,
you know, like. All of us that are in this position of like, whether you're coaching a team of kids or you have an organization of 250 kids, you're trying to do right by them. I think largely,
that's the optimist view is that.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we just have different perspectives on what works and what doesn't work relative to the goals that we establish and the values and the culture and the principles that we carry. And it's like, you know, at the end of the day, man, I care about development. I think development is like development in youth baseball is like the last revolutionary stone that we can turn over, because largely I think college and professional baseball has just revolved around the kids who were good. Mm-hmm. Which is a different question than like if you take the ages of like 9 to 18 and actually develop someone to get good based on a quantified understanding of what good is. And if you're going to do that the best way possible, you can't be intentionally obvious about things like injury risk.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a thing. There are kids that get hurt every single day playing this game that never picked up anything other than a 5-ounce baseball in their life. Yep. So ask yourself the question, how do they get there? We don't sell enough plyos to drive Little League shoulder and Little League elbow being like domain-specific catchphrases for medial epicondylitis. Right? I can tell you our sales numbers do not have anywhere near that type of impact. I would probably make the argument that if most of those kids had bands, wrist weights, and plyo care, that they probably wouldn't be getting in that place. Or it would be one good step to kind of avoid that as an outcome, but the other step would be workload.
Yeah.
It's just workload, man. We keep coming back to it over and over and over. Stress is a non-negotiable part of throwing a thing. It's just part of it. Like I was talking to a mom the other day who, at the football game, I used to coach her son back in the day when he was playing baseball. The kid kind of hated baseball. I did everything in my power to make him love it, just set him up in positions to succeed. Baseball wasn't his thing. You know what turned out to be his thing? Is track and field. Discus, javelin, shot put. So now we get to have a conversation about what is it, Johannes Vettel or whatever his name is, the guy that does the crazy javelin throwing, where his scap retraction is like shoulder end range of motion is nuts. It's crazy. I mean, we're talking about like 180 degrees plus. It's crazy. And and I got put onto that stuff by Driveline OG Ron Hill. Rob showed me that stuff because he was looking at it, because you're talking about guys that are like trying to understand in an Olympic sport that development has been driven by research and analysis over decades. How do guys throw harder and farther? Like, you're talking about people who are like incessant in their ability to try to understand this thing as best as possible. You get way deep down the rabbit hole looking at stuff like that because you want to understand.
Yeah.
And that's a very different...
I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole, though.
You should. But that's a very different, philosophical perspective than someone who's like, there is one period of time where this game was golden and evergreen. And everything that's different from that is just wrong. Like, do you watch NASCAR?
No, but he might.
I would bet you he does. Hey, you know what those cars are running in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s? Carburetors. You know why they don't run carbs anymore? They run fuel injection. Wait, shit, am I wrong? I'm way more into like open wheel racing. Hold on. I
could not tell you.
Hold on, guys. We are going to find out. Aha, I am right. Okay, sidebar done. The reason you don't see carbs in NASCAR anymore is because electronic fuel injection is more efficient. The game changed. What are you going to do? Like, boycott Talladega? You're going to boycott Daytona? No fuel injection, carburetors only. That's the way that it was supposed to be. Man, look, times change, the game changes, evolution and development is just like, that is a human process.
Yeah. And
you want things to be the same. Because that's when you had your moment in the sun. You were golden and evergreen in that moment when things were the way that they were for you. Well, guess what, man? Doesn't stay that way.
To be fair, I have seen videos of him in the front row at football games screaming, "Run the ball. Run it from a T formation. Stop throwing the ball."
Good luck. Good luck. So yeah, I guess this is more, I don't know if this is just like an audience of the two of us for this type of thing. But in so much as like, we have, people that are listening to this thing. I have no problem at all with someone asking well-intended, curious, not judgmental questions about what we do. I love to have those conversations.
I would take judgmental questions about what we do.
Sure. Don't be disingenuous. Don't be disingenuous and then be surprised when there is no conversation to be had because you didn't really want that in the first place.
No.
You just want to throw stones and then act surprised when what is that, the Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the gif of like, was I supposed to expect there'd be consequences for my actions? Yeah. It bees like that sometimes. So yeah, I got nothing else. I don't think. You got anything else?
Not really. So
Okay.
come out here. We're happy to host anybody who is a hater, who thinks we're wrong and terrible people and intentionally trying to hurt children. Come out. You can sit right here. We'll put a chair there, or maybe right here.
100%.
And we'll talk to you. We'll hear you out. We're not sitting up here saying we have all the right answers.
Oh God, no.
But we're at least asking the questions.
Yep.
And trying to get the answers.
Yep.
So yeah, come on out to Kent.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is that, in so much as, this person's perspective is, fairly unilaterally negative, some of the stuff he's negative about, I agree with.
Sure.
Like I 100% agree. Yeah. I think, these families that get, just kind of bent over by these tournament organizations for gate fees, and they're trying to get their money, and they won't let you bring water in, and all that stuff. I agree.
Yeah.
There's a reason that we don't participate in that stuff in the thing that we control.
Yeah.
You know, there's a reason we don't do that. There's a reason we do everything in our power to avoid workload issues because we're aware. I just, I'm highly skeptical of people from that position ever having like the genuine interest in wanting to have the conversation.
Oh, he's never going to come out here. That's why I can make this offer.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Well, and like, and the funny thing is like, I'm just literally looking and there's this guy, a guy who knows a guy. So there's like that little, like, cabal of people. And it's like, one of those people is selling this idea that, you can perfect your motion, in sport and it is going to, effectively like remove your odds of having any injury risk.
Sure.
And like, again, you're just selling a narrative.
Yeah.
You're selling a narrative. You're selling a story that is not backed by science. It is not backed by anecdote even. It's not backed by history.
No, but they don't care if they're selling it.
No, I know.
If people are buying it, they don't care.
No, I know.
He's selling T-shirts.
Coffee mugs.
Yeah. With your face. If there's a coffee mug with your face on it, I will buy it. If he, I don't know. I mean, he's not going to. Well, maybe he'll listen. I don't know. If you want to make a coffee mug with his face on it, I would probably buy that. I think it's funny.
Here's the only thing I ask, man. Like, please use the picture from the old Driveline facility where my arms look kind of jacked. Like, if you could do that, that'd be great.
Isn't that
however,
what his profile is?
Well, it's that picture, but it's like he took it with like a potato phone. Like, there's a high resolution version of my face on my profile. Use that picture. Don't download that picture. Email it to your Windows 95 desktop, print that out on like an inkjet, and then take a picture of that. That's the quality of like, it's right there, man. Even if I blocked you on Twitter, go to my LinkedIn. You can steal my picture from there. It's also high resolution.
Oh.
Although actually the fact that it's so crappy looking is kind of makes it a little bit endearing.
Yeah.
It's like one of those like 8-bit digital cameras from way back in the day.
It's got to be 5% flattering.
I guess. Like
that he's chosen you to go after. Of all of the people that he could have chosen, there's something there that you gotta take a positive out of. That it's kind of flattering that like you have a big enough following and a big enough presence and are saying enough things that are terrifying him because you're right. That he's chosen to take his ire out on you. Like, that's got to be somewhat flattering.
I guess. Like, I was talking to Lord Business, Mike, the CEO, and I was like, because Mike checked in. He was like, hey, like how are you doing with this? Because it's like it's my fucking face, man.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I'm cool. I'm cool. It's amusing to me that like you're gonna take shots at me and Kyle. And that's, and like, look, man,
pretty good company,
right? And I'll take that, but it's like, you could be taking shots at many other men and women that have worked in this company that have done different things that are just as substantial, if not maybe more so than I have. And I mean, I would trade, I would trade 10 people who have genuine intellectual curiosity about how to help their kids get better at sports. I would trade those guys for him 10 times out of 10. Like if that was a thing that I would get, I would much rather have that be a thing. But yeah, man, the whole thing is just so weird.
It is weird.
It's also just like weirdo behavior, man. Can you imagine? Like, and again, we had the last podcast episode. We were talking about like I've never really like chirped a guy at a stadium, right?
Yeah.
I've never used somebody else's face for my face to represent me on any of these platforms.
Yeah. I've done it on Slack.
Well, in Slack we can do it like internally. For
Shout out
jokes.
Alex Harder. My picture forever. But like Yeah, to
When
do
Harder
it.
had you in the uniform, right?
Harder had me and I had him. Yeah, it was very confusing to people. But like to use somewhat like I love Harder, right? Like
Yeah.
that was we were not using each other's picture
Yeah.
out of like being shitty to each other. It was funny. To like take someone that you genuinely dislike or seem to dislike and use them as your profile picture is real weirdo behavior.
That's
like
real,
it's
yeah.
very, very strange.
It's so sketchy. Yeah, I just don't understand it. I would never behave that way. I would certainly never behave that way as a 46-year-old man, and that guy's probably got 3 to 5 years on me. So like, man, you're well in the fives, dude. What are we doing? What are we doing? Like
I know I've asked you this. Does he train kids?
As far as I'm aware, no.
Okay.
He does speaking engagements, and like we'll show up for like a day, and it's like, man, yeah, okay. Like I'm aware that's a thing in our industry. You know, like you're gonna sign up for a camp, and like there was up in Shoreline where I live, right? There's a guy playing the show, pretty successful, local guy. And it was like, oh, come to so and so's clinic, right? And like, I get that. I totally understand that thing. You know, like there's a guy who's made it into the mountaintop, and he's going to show up at your local gym, training facility, whatever, and you're going to go there and listen to him, right? And like, and he's going to tell you, he's going to try to impart some wisdom. You know, we've all seen the video of Tony Gwynn talking to a bunch of like 13 to 14-year-old kids about the things that made Tony Gwynn special. Hey, look, man, if it was just as simple as Tony Gwynn would say the magic words to you and you'd be Tony Gwynn, what do you think we'd have? We'd have more Tony Gwynns. We don't. Tom House, famous for working with a lot of like high-end throwers, notably Nolan Ryan. I think Tom House is, from every interaction that I've had with him, an exceptionally positive human being. I don't agree with some of the things in the NPA protocol. That doesn't change the fact that I think Tom has tried to do everything he can to do good, positive, progressive work with the athletes that he's touched. How many Nolan Ryans do we have?
This is just one that I know of.
You think Tom House didn't go out and talk to guys about the same stuff that he talked to Nolan Ryan about?
Yeah.
You can't... Skill acquisition doesn't work that way, man. So like, yeah, no, I don't think he trains kids, but he goes places and talks to kids. And it's like, yeah, that's one thing, and like, yeah, man, there's I'm sure there's value there. Some guy walks into your building, place that you train, and he's like, hey, I made it to the show, and these are the things that I did, and this is what was important for me. Great, maybe that works for you. But like, the actual process of like trying to get to the same place that guy did involves tens and thousands and hundreds and thousands and millions of repetitions, and like knocking down the program. You have to knock down the recovery. You have to knock down your personal life. You can't be a shithead. Like, you can't just go to a place and listen to a guy. You could be a little bit of a shithead. Yeah, I mean, as evidenced by the fact that my Los Angeles Dodgers is someone that should just be like booted into the sun.
Now you know what day we recorded the podcast.
Yeah, now you know what day. Although, given the fact that we no longer have any backlog, it's going to be very... So, like, we'll have to build that back up. So then when we talk about...
It's my fault for going to Europe.
Yeah,
we burned through our whole backlog.
It's all good. So, yeah, you want to have an honest discussion, I'm here for it. We're here for it. Everything that we try to do is informed by evidence and experience and research. We are men of science. Like that's what we're trying to do. And if you want to have a discussion and debate along those terms, man, I'm down. I am super, super down. I would be down to have that done publicly.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be at ABCA. I'll throw this out there. You were supposed to show up at ABCA last year, I think, and didn't. Come holler at me. I'm open. I'll be there. We can talk in a hallway, with a microphone, in front of an audience, at a dinner table. I'm down. But you won't.
No.
Because that's not really what you want to do. You don't want to have a discussion. You just want to paint the finger. You want to point the finger at someone and demonize what they do, and you want a time machine. Well, guess what, man? I don't have that.
Yeah.
I don't have that. That's not the way that anything works. That is not the mechanism of like human process development.
But think about how easy it is to just be negative, point the finger at other people, and do speaking engagements, and not have to like actually put in the work to make kids better.
No. You don't have to solve any problems. You know, like I'll shout out to, Rob Haney and Brian Brownlee. Just got the info about the ABCA Youth Summit, which I will be again in Kansas City this year. The thing I care about most is getting more kids playing baseball. And if we have more kids playing baseball, I want them to play the game for longer. Everything that I've tried to do over the last 5 years of Driveline is in service of that initiative and that initiative alone. Everything else past that is outside of my purview. I don't have the experience. I don't have the knowledge to kind of push that. I care about one thing. That's it. So, come talk to me. Come and talk to me, in the words of Jodeci. No, very completely different context. Don't come and talk to me like Jodeci. Come and talk to me at a man at any place, or you can come out here. We can have the conversation. That's all I got. So, as usual, thank you guys. The likes, subscribes, the shares, hugely appreciated. Do all the things on the algorithmic places that support the pod. Podcast exclusive discounts and coupons and stuff like that is coming very shortly. 1,000% in service for our ability to help kids be able to do this thing and be able to afford it.
Yep. And keep emailing, texting. If you've got ideas, stuff you want to hear about us talk on the podcast, we're always open to ideas. Yeah,
I think in the next couple episodes, I do want to get in the weeds of the new product that we have coming out. We have a new book coming out. We have a new couple bats that are coming out for youth that are going to be pretty exciting. We're gonna kind of talk about those as we get closer to production. We can do a pretty deep dive on the book pretty soon here because it's in a good place. Moving to production, I think we're looking at a December release, which is really exciting. So for you guys who are looking to think about what we're going to be doing in the off season for this coming year, ideally, in December, we're going to have a thing for you that's going to lay out everything that we believe to be true and correct about what we were trying to do and why. Burned a lot of calories trying to get it done, and I think it's going to be good. So hopefully that'll be a thing. Yeah, that's all we got.
Malcolm Gladwell, come on the pod.
Oh, Malcolm Gladwell, come on the pod. I don't know if we're supposed to not promote other people's podcasts, but Malcolm Gladwell was on Bill Simmons' podcast a couple weeks ago. And anyways, they end up talking about the state of youth sports, and Malcolm Gladwell is 1,000% correct in his analysis of the ecosystem. I think Simmons was correct about what he's seen from it
as a parent.
As a parent, but I think the reason that I will publicly stump for Malcolm Gladwell to be on our podcast is because we are men of science, because we live in this world of analytics and data, and because we have now experience in kind of developing kids, we can start to talk about why the approach doesn't have to be binary. There isn't just one way to do this thing, right? There's a bunch of different ways, and part of the reason, again, that we don't call ourselves it's not a travel team because we don't travel. But then the moment that you introduce that idea, well, why don't you travel? It opens up all these other questions that I think somebody like Malcolm Gladwell would be a great discussion to have. You want to talk about someone who you'd be able to have a really intellectually honest discussion with, that would be a good one. So yes. Malcolm Gladwell, please come on the pod. We'd love to have you. That's all I got. We'll catch you guys next time. Thank you.